Born Alfredo James Pacino on April 25, 1940 in East Harlem, New York, the boy who would one day become a Hollywood legend had a childhood far removed from glitz or glamour. His Sicilian immigrant parents separated when he was just 2, leaving him in the care of his grandparents in the South Bronx, a place where danger and hardship lurked at every corner. Money was scarce and food often limited, yet the streets taught him lessons no classroom could. Even as a child, Pacino displayed an unquenchable curiosity and a spark of defiance that hinted at his future resilience. Fights, minor thefts, and skipping school were not acts of rebellion alone, but survival in an unforgiving environment. Amid the chaos, the one sanctuary he found was the theater. His mother frequently took him to movie houses, and the flickering screens became windows into a world he longed to be part of. By his teenage years, acting had become more than passion. It was a lifeline, a way to escape the cold realities around him. Yet, hardship only intensified. Friends succumbed to addiction, nights were spent on strangers' couches, and the young Pacino often wondered if he could ever rise above the chaos. But these very struggles honed an emotional depth and raw authenticity that would later define his performances. He learned the value of patience, perseverance, and courage in the face of adversity. Every rejection, every lost night of sleep, every pang of hunger became a stepping stone, forging a resilience that would carry him into a world few Bronx kids ever dreamed of: Hollywood. From the very beginning, his life was a story of survival, determination, and a relentless pursuit of dreams that refused to be dimmed, laying the foundation for a journey filled with triumph, heartbreak, scandal, and unthinkable risk. By the time Pacino reached his teens, the streets of the South Bronx had become both a classroom and a crucible, teaching lessons that would shape the man he was to become. School proved uninspiring, and academics felt like an obstacle rather than a pathway to success. He dropped out at 17, leaving home to fend for himself while grappling with grief, poverty, and the weight of lost parental guidance. He took on whatever work he could find, from busboy to janitor, often working long hours for little pay, yet never letting go of the theater, which had become his sanctuary. Nights were long and often sleepless, sometimes spent on the stage where he rehearsed, sleeping on hard floors or borrowed couches. Loss was a constant companion. In quick succession, he endured the death of his mother and grandfather, tragedies that left him reeling, but also provided him with profound emotional insight. These early experiences would later allow him to channel pain into art with unmatched intensity. Rejection was a familiar foe. Multiple attempts to gain entry into the actor's studio ended in disappointment, yet he refused to surrender. Instead, he trained tirelessly at HB Studio under mentors who introduced him to method acting, emphasizing emotional authenticity above all. Every role became an opportunity to pour his life into performance, and every setback deepened his resolve. Greenwich Village became his proving ground, a place where he lived on the edge, scraping together a living while immersing himself in acting. These years of struggle, deprivation, and fierce ambition laid the groundwork for a career that would later redefine Hollywood, proving that even the harshest beginnings could give rise to an indomitable spirit destined for greatness. Pacino's breakthrough came not on the silver screen, but under the harsh lights of off-Broadway theaters, where he honed his craft and began earning the attention of critics who would take note of his raw, magnetic presence. One of his earliest successes in the play Does the Tiger Wear a Necktie showcased his ability to embody complex, troubled characters with depth far beyond his years. The performance earned him a Tony Award, signaling that his talent was undeniable and his persistence was paying off. Yet financial struggles persisted. Even as accolades poured in, he often slept on theater floors or relied on friends' generosity to make ends meet. These hardships, however, sharpened his resolve, and he began to develop the kind of emotional honesty and vulnerability that would become his signature. In 1969, he made his film debut in Me, Natalie, a small but significant role that allowed him to translate his theater skills to the camera. The experience was transformative, offering him a glimpse of Hollywood's possibilities while underscoring the vast gulf between theater acclaim and cinematic success. In these formative years, Pacino also embraced method acting fully, training relentlessly to perfect his craft. He poured himself into rehearsals, studies, and character exploration, absorbing every nuance of human behavior, emotion, and vulnerability. Friends and colleagues noticed his intensity, his refusal to settle for mediocrity, and his obsession with authenticity in performance. It was during this period that the foundation for his legendary career was built, a combination of raw talent, unyielding discipline, and the emotional scars of a difficult youth, all of which would coalesce to create one of Hollywood's most magnetic and unforgettable presences, capable of commanding attention in any room or scene he entered. The transition from stage to screen was anything but seamless. Pacino's early film roles were modest, his talent often overshadowed by his lack of fame. Yet every opportunity became a proving ground, allowing him to translate the emotional intensity of theater into the subtler, camera-focused demands of cinema. In 1971, he landed his first leading role in The Panic in Needle Park, portraying a young man ensnared in heroin addiction. The film was raw and unflinching, and Pacino's performance drew critical acclamation for its authenticity, emotional depth, and fearless vulnerability. Audiences were introduced to a new kind of actor, one willing to immerse himself completely in the pain, chaos, and humanity of his characters. Despite limited commercial success, his reputation as a serious, committed actor began to grow. Directors and casting agents recognized the unique magnetism he brought to every scene, the way his eyes conveyed a storm of emotion without words, and the discipline he demonstrated on set. Pacino's early struggles with finances, housing instability, and constant rejections only heightened the intensity he could bring to his roles. The Bronx kid who had survived on theater floors and borrowed couches now had a canvas on which to project every ounce of experience he had accumulated. This period of quiet recognition, away from blockbuster fame, was crucial. It allowed him to perfect his craft, refine his approach to film acting, and prepare for the life-changing opportunities that would soon catapult him to global stardom, proving that persistence and dedication, even in obscurity, can forge legends. In 1972, everything changed with The Godfather. Pacino was relatively unknown, facing intense skepticism from studio executives who favored established stars. Director Francis Coppola Conda, however, recognized an extraordinary potential in the young actor, believing Pacino could embody the quiet intensity required for Michael Corleone's transformation from reluctant outsider to ruthless mafia boss. The studio resisted, worried about his lack of fame and slight stature, but Coppola's insistence prevailed. During filming, Pacino faced immense pressure. Executives criticized his initial performance, describing it as too passive. Yet his quiet intensity and meticulous preparation allowed him to deliver one of the most iconic performances in cinematic history. The restaurant assassination scene became a turning point, revealing the depth and control he could bring to even the most tension-filled moments. When The Godfather premiered, it was an instant sensation, earning over $250 million worldwide and cementing Pacino as a star. Critics praised his transformation, noting the layered portrayal of a man balancing family loyalty, ambition, and the corrosive allure of power. Academic award nominations followed, alongside global recognition, confirming that Pacino was no longer just a stage actor, but a Hollywood legend in the making. His portrayal of Michael Corleone became a touchstone for generations, demonstrating that true talent combined with perseverance could triumph against doubt, opposition, and even the harshest skepticism, elevating him from obscurity to the pinnacle of international fame. By the mid-1970s, Pacino was at the pinnacle of Hollywood, delivering a string of performances that would define a generation. Following The Godfather, he starred in Serpico, 1973, portraying a real-life NYPD officer battling corruption, a role that allowed him to channel righteous anger, intensity, and moral complexity into a performance both explosive and deeply human. Critics hailed him for bringing authenticity and nuance to a story that might have otherwise been sensationalized. In 1975, Dog Day Afternoon pushed his artistry further, depicting a desperate bank robber whose humanity and vulnerability captivated audiences. One of the film's most memorable moments, Pacino's improvised shouting "Attica" outside the bank, was not scripted, yet it became emblematic of his commitment to truth in performance. These films established Pacino not just as a box office draw, but as an actor capable of capturing the full spectrum of human emotion, from quiet intensity to raw fury. Even as fame grew, Pacino's work ethic remained relentless. He continued to immerse himself in roles, studying character, history, and psychology to ensure his portrayals rang true. His early successes created immense opportunity, but also immense pressure. Studios expected him to consistently deliver award-worthy performances, and the public's gaze was unrelenting. Despite this, Pacino's career soared, earning him multiple Academy Award nominations, BAFTAs, and global recognition as one of the most talented actors of his generation. At this peak, he was a master of nuance, capable of conveying the smallest flicker of emotion with astonishing impact. Yet even amid the triumphs, seeds of later struggles, financial mismanagement, controversial film choices, and personal vulnerabilities were quietly accumulating, reminding us that even legends are human, susceptible to the unpredictability of fame, fortune, and the ever-watchful eye of the public. No career, no matter how stellar, is without missteps, and for Pacino, the late 1970s and early 1980s brought trials that tested both his reputation and resilience. Films like Bobby Deerfield and Cruising failed spectacularly, drawing harsh criticism and, in some cases, public protest. Cruising became especially controversial, with LGBTQ+ activists fearing harmful stereotypes, leading to daily disruptions during filming and widespread backlash upon release. Despite these setbacks, Pacino accepted each challenge as a chance to stretch his craft, yet the failures began to impact his finances and public image. By his 70s, a massive Ponzi scheme executed by a trusted financial advisor drained $50 million from his fortune, revealing how decades of focus on artistry had left him vulnerable in managing wealth. Extravagant spending compounded the problem. Extravagant jets, luxurious European trips, multiple properties, and an array of cars and phone lines sapped his resources, often without his knowledge. Even when he took roles in commercially questionable films, he did so to maintain income, leading to projects like Jack and Jill 2011, where critics lambasted his over-the-top performance, yet the paycheck kept him afloat. These years highlighted the paradox of fame. While adored and celebrated for his artistry, Pacino remained human, susceptible to manipulation, financial pitfalls, and the pressures of public scrutiny. Even amid these difficulties, he maintained his artistic integrity, never letting the failures define him entirely. His response to adversity, whether stepping into flawed roles, enduring criticism, or rebuilding his finances, illustrated resilience that mirrored the characters he often portrayed: flawed, vulnerable, yet unstoppable. While navigating the peaks and valleys of fame, Pacino faced personal battles that would shape his perspective on life, mortality, and priorities. Chronic insomnia plagued him for decades, leaving nights long and restless, his mind racing with thoughts that refused to release him. Sleep deprivation led to memory lapses, mood swings, and hallucinations at his lowest points, making everyday life a challenge. In 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Pacino contracted the virus and experienced one of the most harrowing episodes of his life. He lost consciousness entirely, his pulse vanished, and paramedics worked alongside doctors to bring him back from the brink. For several minutes, he experienced a void, neither presence nor memory, a liminal space that few survive and even fewer describe with clarity. Unlike others who report visions of light or spiritual presence, Pacino described an emptiness, a chilling reminder of mortality. Yet even these crises became moments of reflection rather than despair. He vowed to prioritize health, to cherish time with his youngest son, Roman, and to face life with renewed intentionality. Near-death experiences coupled with a lifetime of sleep deprivation and personal loss instilled in him a profound appreciation for the fragility of life. They deepened his understanding of human emotion, suffering, and resilience, insights he would bring back to his craft. These events, terrifying and transformative, reinforced the complexity of a life lived fully, reminding both Pacino and the world that even legends are mortal, vulnerable, and constantly learning, evolving, and surviving in a world that offers no guarantees. Beyond the cameras and accolades, Pacino's personal life has been a complex tapestry of romance, fatherhood, and public scrutiny. Never married, he is the father of 4 children from 3 different relationships, navigating love and family while sustaining a demanding career. His eldest, Julie Marie, was born in 1989, followed by twins Anton and Olivia Rose in 2001, and finally Roman in 2023 with Nora Alfala, a woman 54 years his junior. The relationships brought joy, complexity, and at times controversy, particularly with Alfala, whose high-profile connections and financial expectations drew public attention and speculation. Pacino's devotion, however, remained steadfast, often prioritizing the well-being of his children above personal convenience or public perception. Over decades, he maintained discreet, loving involvement with his family, while balancing global fame, grueling work schedules, and the pressures of media scrutiny. Past relationships, including with Diane Keaton, Beverly D'Angelo, and Lucilla Pock, further shaped his public image as a man of passion, charm, and deep emotional engagement, yet one resistant to societal pressures to marry. Through triumphs, heartbreaks, and controversies, fatherhood became a grounding force, reminding him of responsibility, legacy, and the human connections that truly matter. Pacino's personal life, full of complexity, mirrors the depth he brings to his characters, multifaceted, vulnerable, and authentic, providing insight into the man behind the legend, whose love, devotion, and struggles resonate as powerfully as any performance he has delivered on screen. As decades passed, Pacino transitioned from relentless leading man to revered icon, his influence spanning generations of actors, filmmakers, and audiences. Roles in films like Scent of a Woman, 1992, which earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, reaffirmed his mastery, while later performances demonstrated versatility, wisdom, and depth honed over years of struggle, triumph, and introspection. Even in later years, he continued to embrace challenging roles, television projects, and theater, reflecting a lifelong commitment to storytelling above mere fame or fortune. Pacino's journey from a Bronx child fighting for survival to one of the most respected actors in Hollywood is a testament to perseverance, passion, and resilience. Behind the scenes, he has endured financial loss, personal betrayal, near-death experiences, and public scrutiny, yet these trials only deepened the humanity he brings to every performance. Today, Pacino's legacy is measured not only in awards or box office success, but in his ability to capture the human condition with unmatched intensity and authenticity. His life story inspires, reminding us that brilliance is forged in adversity, that failure and triumph are inseparable, and that the most enduring impact is made by those who remain true to their craft, their passions, and themselves. Pacino's cinematic and personal journey proves that talent, courage, and resilience can transcend circumstance, leaving an indelible mark on culture, audiences, and the world, forever cementing his place as a living legend whose story is as compelling as the characters he has immortalized on screen.